Hello, hello, hello. Hey, my friends. My name is Svava Brooks. I'm abuse survivor coach. And if you are watching the replay, thank you for taking the time to watch and listen. I love to hang out here on YouTube and Periscope with my fellow survivor thrivers. I try to be here twice a week live, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as we work our way through my book, one page, one day at a time. So as a survivor and abuse survivor coach, I help other adult survivors on their healing journey. I work with people both one-on-one, and in groups. So if you're looking for support or on your healing journey, hey friend, welcome. Please feel free to look me up. My website is svavabrooks.com, and you can find my books on Amazon and Kindle and everywhere on social media. You can find me. I write weekly blogs about the healing journey and run online support groups where we come together and have some heart-to-heart, right, Christine? Hey, friend. Hey, Chrisanne. Have heart-to-heart about healing and restoring our hearts, our minds, and our spirits, because I know, my friend, that you, right? You already have everything that you need to heal and restore. Yep, just sometimes helps to have a little bit of support along the way to help us remember. And that's what I really, truly feel privileged to support other people on the journey as I share some of the, I don't want to call them tips or tricks, because it's kind of, we have to work hard at it. It's a paradigm shift to move from how we survived in the past to, okay, putting our stake in the ground. I'm ready. I'm going to start to thrive. I'm going to reclaim my life, right? I'm going to reclaim my truth, who I am. I'm not my coping mechanism. I am not my traumatic responses to my body or to the outside world. I'm going to work at figuring a way how to self-regulate and take good care of this body so I get to choose my life. So, hey, Sue, how are you doing, my friend? Get to see you twice in one day. What a treat. So, as if you're new here and watching, please say hello. Please introduce yourself so we can welcome you as a group here. We hang out here, like I said earlier, and then we have a closed Facebook group where I post the page of the day from our book. And then group members go ahead and share their journal entry, and then we're going to go through some of that together here. So if you want to learn more about that, please reach out. So you're good? Nice. Today in our, we have 2 live Zoom calls. Also, today we were doing a meditation, breathing through the heart. Right? So that was an interesting one, right? Trying to align our hearts and our minds to to align all the channels. Okay, good. Your flight is okay. Yay. I was just thinking, I talked to somebody else also, we have our retreat coming up in just a couple weeks. So exciting. Oh my goodness. And so after you shared your worries about your flight, I was like, wait a minute, maybe I should look and see. I don't even know who I'm flying with. Hey, Vicky. Hey, friend. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Of course, I know I can't see you, but I can see that you're here. So that's awesome. Well, Sue, I'm happy to hear that you've confirmed that your flight is still on, right? With all the shutting down, or what do you call them, grounding of those airplanes, right? It's been quite a a disturbance for a lot of people traveling. So I'm glad your flight is okay. Glad to hear it. So on the call this morning, I was showing you guys what I got as a gift this week. I was on a podcast recently. I was being interviewed. And as a thank you gift, she bedazzled. So I don't dare to getting batteries for it. It needs batteries to make the sound. I think my son would have so much fun with it, but but I love it. I love that it has, right, my name on it, and I could be really getting you guys' attention. So very cute, right? Maybe I'll bring it to the retreat, and that's how I'll wake you guys up in the morning. But I have the feeling that's not going to be a challenge. There you go, Sue. There you go. Thank you for reminding me, because I have a big mission, a big goal, a big vision. There are so many. I keep hearing 42 million survivors of child abuse and trauma in America alone. And so I know the ripple effects of starting to talk about child abuse and neglect and trauma and how that helps people. And I also know that there's so many survivors out there that don't have the support that they need, that don't even know that they can heal and restore. For so long, it was my trauma brain just kept me disconnected and isolated, and I thought it was just me and it was just my fault, right? Once I started learning more and all this information, and I have said, and I know I'm a broken record, we're kind of in the golden age of human transformation. I think we are learning so much about how our brain, our mind, right? Our biology, our nervous system, how it's all connected, right? We aren't just some machine that is just meant to go through the motion every day, right? And once we grow up, that's it, you can't change. It's not true at all. There's so much going on that we can change. So anyways, so I'm on a mission to tell the world and to tell 1 million survivors. I want to reach 1 million survivors with the message of hope and healing. And I need you guys. I'm counting on you guys, because when we heal and restore, and I see this in the group already, once you tap into that hope, you go like, oh my gosh, I have to tell others. I have to tell others. And that's it. As humans, we are all connected. So when we find the good news, we can't help but share it with others. So today, the topic of the day, right? Listening is hard for child abuse survivors, right? Obviously, it was hard because we weren't heard, right? And that's why I say a lot, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I see you. I see you, right? Most of us weren't heard, we weren't seen, we weren't allowed to express our emotions, and many times we weren't allowed to speak, right? Not allowed to speak, not allowed to show our feelings, not only, right, asking for what we need, right? But not only is asking for what we need now hard, but it's also difficult to listen to the needs of others. Anybody else recognize that? That sometimes because we weren't listened to, it can be hard to hear others. And I don't know about you, but for me, the connection and a little bit of an aha moment was, there you go, Sue, right? And being truly heard is awesome. Yeah. Right? It's like being loved. It's like being cared for when someone sits there and just really looks you in the eye, or just is really puts down their phone, right? Or puts down whatever they're doing, and they're just really present there. And you can tell that they're relaxed in their body and their heart is open, and they maybe lean in with delight and care and compassion, showing, like, responding to what you're saying with interest, or right, or compassion. Just the thought of that, if I'd gotten some of that when I was a little girl. So, right, we don't even know what that looks like. But sometimes in the beginning, when people come to us and we're being asked to listen, it's, right, it can feel a little uncomfortable or overwhelming, especially if people are hurting. And I think that's what's so such a big issue out there, is that people aren't comfortable with our feelings when we are really truly having our emotions, which aren't always fun or pretty, right? There's happy, mad, glad, sad. But it seems like people only want to listen when we're happy. But I'm like, wait a minute. And right, and that's why we stopped asking for help with the sad part, because it became clear nobody wants to hear that. But that is what we need to learn to do. And as we learn, right, and find someone that can hold a space that way for us, all of a sudden we're like, that's what that looks like. Like, I didn't know what it looked like to be heard, because when I was listening to someone, I was always in the back of my mind figuring out my rebuttal, right? Or my opinion about what was being said, or I had a really good advice for them, right? Or I would be like, please don't dump this on me, or please don't, because I can't handle your feelings, or you're being too needy, or whatever, right? That's right, Sue. People are threatened by too much feeling. And and the too much feeling, right? I think it comes from, right, we are not comfortable with our own feelings. We haven't allowed ourselves to have those feelings. So when someone in front of us is having their feelings, we go like, whoa. Yes, exactly. Listening is an active response, right? So people are threatened by too much emotion because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do with you. They think they need to fix it, instead of just learning to listen. And again, if people's emotions are being activated or stirred because of your emotions, then all they're doing is managing their own. So it is, don't judge, right? Here is someone who was a terrible listener for a long time. But then when I'm like, oh, I get it. I get it. And I had to learn to shut down the mind, like I said, who was constantly, exactly, just listening to respond, listening just to answer back, instead of just sitting back. And like I said, full body listening, full body listening. What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? And that's where, TRE, attention and trauma release, and mindfulness and meditation has been very, very helpful to recognize that I don't have to be listening to my mind. Even when my mind is coming up with an answer or an opinion or respond to what's being said, I can just choose to sit and listen and know I'm just going to sit here and in my heart, be soft and open, so this person in front of me feels heard. Because I believe that each one of us, we have a lot of wisdom. We know what we need, right? I do believe that. So just having someone where we can get the junk out, just to get some of the stuff out, we usually get to the bottom of, oh, okay, now that I've just heard myself say all these things and I got to have my feelings about it and perhaps, have the tears come with it, I think I know what I need to do. I feel lighter. I feel like I can handle it. I feel talking through it was helpful. So often just sitting with someone and listening to them helps them, right? And I also just believe that I think we feel it. We can feel when someone is just there really listening. No agenda, right? Not here to fix you, not here to tell you what to do. Happy to give you some suggestions if you ask. But just listen, just like, wow, I'm sorry that happened, right? That must have been hard, right? I'm glad you're here talking about it. Is there anything I can do? Is there anything you need to hear, right? And then for us survivors, sometimes the hardest part is for us to learn to show up and listen to ourselves, right? So let's see here. So where was I? As children, right, we learn to protect ourselves in situations because not only is asking for what we need hard, but it's difficult for us to listen to the needs of others, right? As children, we learn to protect ourselves in those situations. And fortunately, that makes us instantly defensive as adults, which can be disastrous in our relationships, right? And that's so many of us. We want intimacy, we want closeness, we want good communication, we want people to hear us, be able to relate to us, and share common reality. There's something so meaningful about, yeah, I get it. Oh, yeah, right? But often if we didn't have that experience, that we are always kind of on guard, watching out, right? Just immediately protecting ourselves, immediately putting up the walls, especially if someone in front of us gets vulnerable, right? If we're not comfortable with doing that for ourselves. So when you learn that you might not be a great listener, you can learn this information, right, with compassion for ourselves. There's a reason we're like this. Again, why should you listen to others when no one listened to you? Yes, exactly. Makes you think you should be alone. I hear you. I hear you. And I think that's a story that a lot of us tell ourselves as survivors. It's easier just to be alone. But, right, we need people. We need connection. And so figuring out this exchange with other people, it's hard, but we can do it. I hear you, Sue, right? Still not easy to listen to ourselves even then. I get it, right? And again, here is the other point is like, why should you meet the needs of others when no one tried to meet yours, right? But again, this is when your inner child gets in the way, right? That's your inner little girl, your little boy. And it's trying to control the reaction, right? Not your adult self. So when we learn this about ourselves, we can absorb it as our adult self with compassion, with understanding, and a willingness to hear it, right? And it's good practice. Good practice. And like I said, I try to simplify things. There's really only two ways to be, right? And when we're in an exchange with ourselves in here or with others, am I open? You can feel it, right? You can feel it in your body. Am I open? Am I loving? Am I supportive, compassionate, and just listening, right? Curious about what this person experienced. How can I support this person? Or are you defensive? Are you shut down? Are you on guard? Are you just protecting something? You can feel it, then chances are you're in your victim self, or your little girl, your little boy has taken over. So it's kind of a cue. So today, the 2 questions: when you listen carefully to your mind for about 5 minutes, what thoughts are flowing through? And when you listen carefully to the next person who speaks to you, what feelings are you experiencing as you do this? See, these are some ways that we can practice. Start to pay attention to your own listening, right? This was, I can still remember on my healing journey when I was really practicing. Like, I went very intentional into conversations with other people and really made it a point of paying attention to what was happening inside of me while I was listening to other people, whatever they were experiencing. And then, of course, different things perhaps would show up with different people. So hearing what was going on in my mind and hearing, what was going on in my body. And then sometimes just like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit back and listen. And sometimes even today, when I do this with my husband and he's like, why aren't you saying something? And I'm like, honey, I'm here. I'm just very intently listening. Do you want me to give you some feedback, or do you want some suggestions? I'm just sitting here listening because I know you know better than I what's best for you. And I'm not going to pretend that I know what's the right answer here. I can only, do a little brainstorming with you, right? Because sometimes we are asking for it, right? But so sometimes I will just wait. Yeah, and I'll just nod and just, comment a little bit. But then he's like, why aren't you saying something? I'm like, okay, what do you need to hear? You need some advice? Do you need some suggestions? Do you need some brainstorming? So it's a good practice to try sometime and listen. And I think I've told you guys too, I have a son on the Asperger spectrum. And I have definitely learned with him, I have to be very intentional. He's definitely better now that he's older. But when he was younger, I could never just enter his space and, I need you to do chores. I need you to do this. How's your homework going? Just to go down in drill mode. I could just see his walls go up and he would just fight me on it, right? Like that did not work for him, just to kind of come in and just my energy, big energy, just going after him. I would have to really enter his space, exactly, overload. I would really have to enter his space almost like from the side and just sit on his bed or come stand next to him, chit chat a little bit, how was your day? How are you feeling? What's going on? And at the same time, really monitor his energy, right? And the more I learned about self-regulation and being present in my own body, the more I could pick up on where he was, right? And if he would come to me in a state of being very anxious, then I instead of wanting to fix it, like my mom's heart, just like, okay, let's fix this. Let's get you feeling better right away. I would have to be very intentional of sitting back, taking a deep breath, slowing down my heart rate, my breathing, and just listen and just listen and just listen. And the same thing. It's like, what do you think you need right now? I'm sorry that happened. Really, tell me about that again, right? Until I could visibly see and hear how he and his body and his nervous system started calming down. And then often at the end of it, he's like, thanks, Mom, for listening. I feel so much better. And I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. I didn't give him advice or anything. I just sat and listened and was intentional about not matching his energy, his frantic energy. I didn't get him pulled up with it. I helped him to slowly calm back down. So anyways, so I'm a big fan of being mindful of, literally mindful, right? Practicing a little bit of mindfulness in all our interactions with other people. Because, right, Vicky, when we get into that overload, yeah, we shut down. We lose that connection. Sue, that's a good idea. Can you see that? If you play that scenario out for yourself, how that might be helpful, right? And especially if, you know, like with my older daughters, where I have that past relationship with them and there is trauma, you know, in our relationship, that, you know, I have to be even more mindful of them not exactly when you say when she gets dramatic and wound up, right? This is just her reality, her experience, right? Her sharing. It's not about us, right? It's not about you. But since we are so hardwired to these babies, right? We are going to feel it. There's no way around it. But how can we just do the best we can to stay grounded and in our hearts and in our bodies, and not to get drawn into, because that's kind of what they expect, right? And maybe a part of them even wants it, even though they don't, if that makes sense. It's like part of them maybe wants something, some kind of reaction, but we can support them more by staying grounded and choose how we're going to respond and react. So not get sucked into the drama. Exactly. Yeah. And just see whatever is playing out over there is just what's happening over there. We don't get it, make it better by jumping in there with them, right? So anyhow, so let's see here. Chris Ann shared with us today. She says, every thought you could possibly think of these past few days, I'd like to shut it off. It's been too much lately. I hear you, my friend. She says, there you go, Sue. All right, light bulb moment. Those are brilliant. Good for you, my friend. Good for you, my friend. And like we've talked about, Sue, it's hardest. It's the hardest to do when with the people closest to us. So let's see here. Sorry, Christiane was saying here, it's been a hard past few days. I'd like to shut it off. It's been too much lately. And then she says, I did, however, and I was giving you a high five, Christiane, when I read this. I did, however, learn and accept today that I am a trauma survivor. Hey, punish myself so harshly every day for what I don't do, what's not good enough, and on and on and on. Oh my goodness. Shall we show Christiane can we let her know she's not alone? My friend, you're not alone, you're not alone, you're not alone. And I just want to celebrate you for catching it, right? That's mindfulness for you, when we catch ourselves being hard on ourselves. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Vicky. I hope you see that, Christiane. You are not alone, my friend, right? And then she says here, today it hit me that I need to accept where I am at the moment. Accept that on some days the trauma will get the best of me, and it does. And if on some days all I can do is to get up and go to work, then so be it. That's enough. Yes, my friend, Christiane, that is enough. I don't need to be a superwoman. I don't have to live up to the unrealistic expectations in my head. I can only do what I can do, and that is okay. Yes, my friend, exactly. It's enough, and I'm enough right in that very space. Yahoo! Right? That's awesome. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Exactly. And because when we have that expectation, Chrisanne, right? The minute we can identify, right, Sue? I knew you would. You know that one. But the minute we recognize, oh my gosh, like, I'm here, right? And I have expectation of myself that's up here, and the gap. And the truth is, the pressure we put on ourselves, we're never going to get here. In our mind, we're never going to get here, right? Never. But the thing to do is, okay, I'm just going to take that, whatever that is, down and just be right here, right? Because the minute we put something, out of reach, then we're creating this inner pressure. We are comparing ourselves. We are being hard on ourselves. And whatever happens inside of us when we are not good enough, right? Then we have that list from the past, our old way, our inner critic just has a field day and goes off. And our inner critic doesn't just go all over after the things that we didn't do. It goes after us. It goes after who we are, right? And that kind of attack, it's like attacking our heart or our essence. And living with that is toxic. It creates toxic stress in the body, right? So much of our tension is because we are the ones constantly creating these expectations, unrealistic expectations. And then we get to be so hard on ourselves. She goes on to say, listening to other people. Well, yesterday I worked, excuse me, my nose itchy here. Well, yesterday I worked with a nurse who felt she could say whatever she wanted to me. I very calmly let her say it, and then I walked away. Otherwise, she would not be standing today. And for me, that is huge. That's awesome, Chrisanne. That's awesome. Excuse me, friends. My nose is, I'm about to sneeze. That's awesome, my friend. That's huge. That's huge. So, yes, you've been through a lot, right? And your brain works a certain way. And some days, this is it. Some days just showing up. That's it. And I'm going to just feel good about that. So beautiful, Chrisanne. Beautiful. There's just so much kindness and self-compassion that we're seeing from you, sweet friend. You do so much and give so much of you. Exactly. Sounds like awesome restraint, right? Exactly. So fantastic, Chrisanne. I'm so happy to hear this. Good for you, my friend. Good for you. So, hey, my friend Vicky, she says here, Vicky says, it is solely dependent on how I feel that day. Some days I can think positively and know I'm changing. Good days, I can acknowledge that the actions of others are not my fault. Bad days, I beat myself up. I blame myself for the actions of others, my mistakes. I overthink, I overreact, and tell myself I am never going to be good enough. Oof. Especially since the recent rejection from my daughter and not seeing my granddaughter. I've even thought of dying. I'm sorry, my friend. Some days it's too overwhelming and I disconnect completely. I hear you. I hear you, Vicky, right? Just that's a normal response to an overwhelming and stressful situation, right? And I think your clarity here, you see the bad days and the good days, or right, I don't think there is any such things, but we, put labels on them. But it's the bad days are the sad days where we're having hard feelings, right? And there is some grieving to do, and there was some hurt, right? So to recognize when we're having those and be gentle with yourself and reach out for support, because, right, a few of us here in this space, right, we are mothers. We know what that feels like, right? We care deeply. We care so deeply. It hurts, right? So naturally, when it gets too much, we disconnect. Your biology, right? It just goes, it overrides everything and it disconnects you, right? That's what this brilliant body is meant to do. I agree. Vicky says, I think being in pain physically intensifies the emotions too. I agree. Absolutely. Right? When we are in pain, right, your body's energy is all turned inward onto that pain, and your capacity to hold more, right? There's just, and that you're out of bandwidth, right? You are out of space. Yes. So please, Vicky. Yes, my friend. You're welcome. It is hard to be in pain. It's painful, right? It is very, very hard. It's exhausting. You're welcome, Chrisanne. I see you. So I'm glad you're with us, my friend. I'm glad you're with us. Yep. She goes on to say here, Vicky says, that also is dependent on where I am in my mental state. Some days I'm on defense mode and I can't even be talked to. I'm just crabby. It's also dependent on who it is, right? Isn't that interesting? It makes sense, right? That when you're in defense mode, that's it. You can't really take anything in, right? You're just on guard. You're just in survival mode. We're not interested in engagement out here. We're just turning inwards, doing whatever we can to make ourselves feel better, right? And so anybody would feel crabby. That's understandable. And then you say it also depends on who it is. Of course. Please don't come ask me for something when I'm feeling in pain, right? Unless you're here to sit and support me or just to be a loving presence, right? Just leave me alone, right? That's what 25 years of marriage has done for me and my hubby. That's very clear. We know when we want to be left alone, and we are also good at asking for what we need, but it took a long time to get there. So she also says, I have a hard time listening all the way through a lot. I interrupt. I assume I know what's going on, what's going to be said. I want to offer advice, to give help, or if it's personal, take it negatively and lash out. I hear you, Vicky. I hear you. You are not alone. Can anybody else relate to that, perhaps? I can say I used to be that way. You know what I mean? Until I became more grounded and present and really had to train myself to just listen. Hey, Donna, good to see you, friend, right? And so it is practice. And Vicky also says, I always say what I think they want to hear. I guard my words a lot, afraid of reactions. I've also been told I give the best advice and I'm very compassionate and empathetic. I'm just all over the place, just like my thoughts. I hear you, my friend. You are not alone. And that's the thing. The same part of your brain that almost can't wait for people to finish what they're saying because you have figured out what they need. That's like our survivors, that's becomes our superpower, right? We are super hyper vigilant. We are so attuned to the environment and other people because that was coping strategy. That was like I had to do to survive, right? So when we bring that into our relationships, right, sometimes it's a powerful force and we can use that for good, or Sue, I was just about to say, she says, too good at that. Exactly. It's all right, Chrisanne. I hear you, friend. It's to remember, right? It's that same part of our nervous system who, right, gets so excited and is hearing, and then we really want to help. And that also gets the focus off of us and back onto the other person, right? So I hear you, and it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So I want to challenge some of our friends to keep that in mind next time, to just listen and maybe ask some more questions. There you go, Donna, right? It is safer to actually be talking than it is to be listening, because when we're listening, what are we doing? The information is going from there to there. So it's easier for us when we get to be going that way. Hey, Andre, no problem, my friend. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Need to practice listening. Yes, that's a whole nother mindfulness practice on its own. And at the same time, right, it's like to hear what's being said and then also hear what's going on inside of us at the same time. So, and people think being adults and living in these bodies is easy. It is a full-time job. It is a full-time job. And like I say, I think they should be teaching all of these skills in school. Social engagement, conversation, talking about what we need, and then listen to each other. So that would be a good practice, starting from when we're young, as we get older. So absorbing it first. Yes. Yeah. And remember that when somebody is talking, they aren't always asking for advice, right? We forget that sometimes. But again, if that's what we are known for, and we, have gotten some goodies from it, we love to give advice too, because it makes us feel good too, right? So that's also in there. Sue, I've been on a listening course, but it was hard. Yep. I get it. Yep, I get it. And, also thinking about the biology of trauma and how trauma impacts, our whole bodies and our nervous system. It actually impacts our hearing too. What we actually hear, right, gets limited when we are, tight or in attention or defending ourselves, or don't feel safe. It just simply isn't a priority for the body anymore when it's just on guard to protect itself. So it's not like, listening for the chatter, so to speak. It's just focusing on what do I have to sort out here to stay alive, right? To get out of this. So thank you, my friend Vicky. I hear you, my friend. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you, right? I know you have a lot going on. Your heart is hurting, right? Because of what's going on with your daughter. It's hard to feel misunderstood and that people don't want to hear what we have to say, right? When people just cut us off, right? But it helps to think about, how you can do the best to take care of your heart, of yourself, that no matter what other people are doing, you're still worthy of self-care and kindness and rest, right? And to trust that, people, if they're meant to be in your life, that things will shift, things will come around, right? You love her. Trust that she too will find her path, right? So I'm feeling you, my friend, and I'm sending you lots of love. Sending you lots of love. I hear you. So go ahead here, a little further down here. Sue shares with us. She says, when left to itself, my mind is planning. Sue is a planner. Anybody else love to plan and writing lists? That's me, Sue. That's me. I get it. The next meal, the next day, the trip to Texas, the information I still need, the clothes I need to take, planning my next bike ride, next stitching project. Except when I started the 5 minutes, it was now how to answer this question. Nearly always it's thinking ahead and often trying to avoid risk. I didn't realize how much I still do that. Thank you, Vicky. You're welcome, my friend. Of course you are. Of course you are. Thank you. Right? I hear you, Andre, right? But he says, I rarely get the stuff done, right? But it is, our brain is, we thrive on structure. We thrive on, some kind of, task. Like the brain likes order. It likes things are being put into its place, right? And also we, when we plan ahead, it also creates, calm, right? That's having raised a son that had a lot of anxiety. What really helped him when he was younger, and I understood, right, is that, he would wake up in the morning and I would do my best to know exactly how his day would go, because he was always asking for what's next, right? That's when we get exactly attempt to control circumstances. Exactly. So it helped him that I would write like a calendar, like he would have on in his room, like the whole day planned out. And I could see that his nervous system would calm down, that he knew what to expect, right? So in that sense, it works. But when our mind, right, is trying to control everything, things that are out of our control, that's, right, we kind of lose track of the intention. I always think about worst case scenario and what's the exit plan. Anyone else? Anybody else think that way? Always think about worst case scenario and what's the exit plan. Yes, I did that for about 15 years. Yes, 15 years. Like I said, been married for almost 25 years. Took me 12 years to trust that he wasn't going to leave, that I had to have a plan because he was leaving, right? So And Andre says, and God forbid that part of the plan involved other person or people doing something in order to move forward. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes, Donna, I have stopped. I have stopped with mindfulness and meditation, right? I've come to see and feel and realize the only moment I have control over is this. I really don't know what's going to happen when I walk out the door later, right? And I can't control my husband. I cannot control him, right? I can communicate what I need. I can communicate what I want, but who knows? This marriage, there's nothing, I don't take it for granted, right? And he is his own person, and I'm my own person, and who knows? If down the road something happened and we're like, okay, honey, I think we're done here. We would always be friends. I would always love him. I'm sure hoping that's not going to happen. But it was helpful to see it that way, right? Worst case scenario. But now that like I said, when I have practiced meditation and mindfulness, I know how much of this is going on in my head, but I don't believe it anymore. I don't believe my mind anymore. And this morning when we were doing our, breathing through our hearts, right? Really coming into our bodies and really calming down, like this is my truth today. This isn't my truth. I follow my gut, my intuition, what feels right, more so than what sounds right. Because what sounds right isn't always what feels right. I don't know if that made any sense, right? And I can still remember the first time I had to stand up for myself. Someone had repeatedly overstepped my boundary, and I had to, be very intentional about setting a boundary. And everybody around me was like, no, you cannot do that. This person is going to be so upset with you. But my gut was just like, like it was, my head was scared as heck, but my heart and my gut was like, I have to do this. I didn't have a choice. I have to do this. I did it. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I did. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I did it. And it was so powerful and rewarding to finally listen to my truth, right? What I was experiencing, what I truly, really needed. And I didn't know the outcome, right? I didn't know what was going to happen, but I trusted myself enough to know what I needed to do. It is, yes. And that's the other thing too, when we are controlling, and here, my name is Svava, I'm a control freak, right? That was me, is that, I was causing so much misery for myself. I had no idea how much misery I was causing for myself and the people around me, right? People were walking on eggshells around me because, if Svava, if it's not exactly so, Svava would get upset, right? And my kids, my daughters, they knew it, And so I finally saw, again, by listening to myself, by coming back to myself and started to pay attention to what was driving me, what's pushing me to be so controlling, right? It was because inside of me, things felt out of control. So I was trying to control this because I had no idea how to control this. I hadn't even been in here. I was just living up here. So I hear you, my friends, and I'm telling you, I'm nothing special. If I can do it, you guys can do this. And it helps. We're doing this together, my friends. We're doing this together, right? We're doing this together. And I'm still work in progress. So that's what I tell you guys. Let's see, my friend Sue, let me finish her share with us. During my conversation with my neighbor over supper, she was full of the volunteer project she is heading up. I'm interested, though she talks about people and situations that I don't know a lot about. I do tell her so, and we laugh about it, but I can feel impatient, and I find it hard to concentrate and really listen. Too often, I find myself just listening to respond rather than fully hearing her. I hear you. I hear you, Sue. And again, this is so important, my friend. So if you're feeling, any sense of guilt right now, if you're feeling like, oh, I can't believe I still do this. I can't believe this is who I am. Remember, my friend, this is part of your trauma nervous system. There is a reason, right? This was a brilliant coping strategy. This is probably what you learned from the people around you growing up, right? This is it. So remember, you learned to be this way, right? You learned to be this way. Your body couldn't be different when this is what you saw and experienced and heard growing up. There's no way you could have done it different. But now that you're learning, right, that there are different ways to be in the world, you can choose to make a shift. So you learn to be this way, you can learn to be different. That's what I'm telling you. And what helps us is to be kind and gentle with ourselves. It doesn't help us when we criticize ourselves or beat ourselves up for the past. I hear you, Donna. It is so difficult to know this was my way of parenting. Wish the clock could be reversed. I hear you, Donna. I hear you. I could, exactly. Realizing it helps, but I have grieved and I've had to forgive myself over and over and over. I have cried with my girls and apologized to them for how I did parent them. I didn't know better. I didn't know there was a different way. And they tell me today that they know I meant it, right? Because they know how hard I have worked at becoming different, becoming more loving, present parent. So the best we can do for our kids, even if they're adults and have moved out, my friends, when we change, when they see us changing, right, Sue? Even if they're not living with us, but they see. And both my girls have told me so many times, Mom, we understand, we know why. And they're so great, and they're grateful that I have apologized. And I have made it okay for them to tell me that about the mistakes that I've made. I couldn't hear it then. See, I couldn't hear them. They knew I wasn't safe to even try to talk to. But now, wow, Andre, I'm sorry, my friend. I hear you, right? It is, I'm sorry, Andre. Exactly, Sue. Even my daughter is beginning to shift, right? When our kids, they see us becoming different. They see we are changing, even though part of their mind, right, keeps expecting who we used to be. When they see us changed over and over and over again, they see it. They can't deny it, right? We are changing. We can change. There you go, my friend Vicky. And that's it. That is for us to continue healing us, is how we can help our kids. and give to them what we couldn't then. I hear you, Andre, right? It explains a lot. Exactly, it explains a lot. And that's so important for us, right? As trauma survivors, in our mind, there's a lot of questions like, why? What's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Why was I this way? Why do I operate? Why do I do this? So for me, my brain is always like, why? Why is this? So I really needed to understand it. And it's like, oh, thank goodness. I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me, right? I'm not bad. I'm not a terrible person. I'm not the worst mother in the world, right? So, with kindness, my friends, with kindness towards ourselves, even that can be hard, right? Because our bodies are like, wait a minute, what is that? You're going to be nice to us. So creating a relationship with our bodies, giving ourselves the love and the comfort and the listening, right? That we wish we could have given to others. Again, another example of we need to give to ourselves in order to give to others. And this is where groups are so powerful. Just this dialogue here that we've had, a few of you have had, yes, exactly, Sue. A few of you have had some insights today just from sharing your journey with somebody else. You have no idea how powerful that is. So our time is almost up, my friends. Just checking here. I think I got everybody. Donna, did you post today, my friend? Nope, that's okay. We're just glad that you're here. Glad that you're here. And I pulled a card for us, and it is always perfect. Woo. Today, one day she opened up her mind to her new possibilities. Isn't that what we talked about today? If this is a message for you, my friend, right? You learned to be this way. You can learn to be different. You learn to be this way. You can learn to be different. And this is how we heal, my friends. One conversation at a time, one truth at a time that we can take and just kind of run down with it. Like, where did this come from? Where did this come from? Why does my body do this? Why does my mind do this? Yes, this was a coping mechanism, a strategy you learned as a child. This is how you learn to get your needs met. This is how you were acknowledged and found a way to have a connection and relationships with people. But now as a grown-up, right, there are different skills required. So, and you guys are doing a beautiful job. Beautiful job. So thank you, friends. This was another conversation, chat, going through the book one day, one page at a time. If this conversation was helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube, or thank you for the hearts over here on Periscope. And please, there was so much that you guys got today. Please remember, write it down for yourself. Those aha moments. Journal about it, put it down on a piece of paper, and even share it in the group. Really, that's how we integrate this new embodied awareness and learning, so we can live out of this new awareness, right? Once we put those pieces together, I learned something new about myself today. Yes, I'm learning to be different. Thanks, Donna. Thanks, friends. Thank you again for being here. And I will see you here on Thursday. Feels like this week is flying by already. I'm like, slow down. It's just Tuesday. But I will see you back here on Tuesday, same time, same place. Until then, be gentle with your hearts and spirit. Much love to you all. Have a good night, everybody. Bye, friends.